Welcome back to Sweet Lovely Death, where we find hidden gems in horror, true crime, and anything else that goes bump in the night. For whatever reason, the Pacific Northwest has been home to more than its fair share of notorious crimes and criminals. Grisly serial killers, heists, and unsolved mysteries. Here are 3 chilling crimes that shocked the Pacific Northwest. Now, I'd like to say real quick, as interesting as true crime is, let's not forget that these are real people with real lives and dreams just like you and me. So, out of respect for the families, we're gonna leave out certain details of these crimes. Number 1. Diane Downs. On May 19th, 1983, Diane Downs and her 3 children, Christy, Cheryl, and Danny, were on their way home after visiting a friend who had a horse up in the Michele area northeast of Eugene, Oregon. She took a detour off of Michele Road onto Old Mohawk Road to do some sightseeing. While the sun was low and dusk was approaching, Diane saw a scruffy-looking man run out from the bushes, waving the car down. Worried the man needed assistance, she pulled her car to the side of the road and opened the door to ask what the man needed. He surprised Diane by pulling out a pistol and demanding her keys. When she refused, he proceeded to shoot her 3 children and fired at Diane, wounding her arm. The terrified Diane sped away towards Mackenzie Willamette Hospital in Springfield. Or did she? Diane Downs, born Elizabeth Diane Fredrickson, was born in Phoenix, Arizona on August 7, 1955, to parents Wesley Linden and Willadine Fredrickson. At 14, she dropped her first name and decided to go by Diane. At the same age, she started a relationship with Steve Downs, a 16-year-old boy who lived across the street. After high school, Steve joined the Navy and Diane enrolled in Pacific Coast Baptist Bible College in Orange, California. But she was expelled after 1 year for promiscuous behavior and soon returned to her parents' home in Arizona. Diane and Stephen were married in 1973, but the relationship was fraught with trouble, mostly due to frequent arguments about Diane's infidelity. Their first child, Christy Ann, was born in 1974. Cheryl Lynn followed in 1976, and Stephen Daniel, born in 1979. Steve thought Stephen Daniel, known as Danny, was the result of an extramarital affair by Diane, so unsurprisingly he filed for divorce. After her divorce, she dated a number of men, quite a few of which were married. Diane also tried to become a surrogate mother. The process required a mental health assessment, of which Diane was determined to be a psychotic but highly intelligent individual. Strangely enough, towards the end of 1981, she was accepted into the surrogate program, which seems pretty strange to me, but who knows, maybe they were desperate that year. She was paid $10,000 to carry the child to term, which she did. Around the same time, Downs began a passionate affair with a married coworker named Robert, or Nick, Knickerbocker. Although he promised her time and time again that he would leave his wife, he had no intention of doing so. After being clear with Diane that he didn't want children, of which she had 3, he ended the relationship and Downs moved back to Oregon. However, she couldn't get over him and grew obsessed instead. The 2 stayed in contact and even met up on a few occasions, the last of which Nick told her once and for all they were finished. Around this time, investigators believe she hatched her plan. And if Nick wouldn't leave his wife for a mother of 3 kids, maybe he would if they were out of the picture. So, after visiting her friend in the Michele area, she took the detour onto Old Mohawk Road to go sightseeing. As horrible as it is, according to the surviving daughter's testimony much later, we're told that she pulled to the side of the road, got out and walked around to the trunk, opened it, pulled out her Ruger 22 pistol, reached across the front seat to the back and shot her 3 children, then proceeded to shoot herself in the forearm. After being questioned by the police, she came up with the absurd story I told you in the beginning of this segment. But from the moment police began speaking with Diane, they knew there was something wrong. Doug Welsh, then a detective with the Lane County Sheriff's Department, was the first to respond to the hospital. He later told reporters, "There were all kinds of red flags that went up as we took her statement, but we wanted her to give us a complete statement. But there were a number of things which didn't make any sense. Why would a mother sightsee when it's dark out? Why does a mom with 3 sleeping children in the car stop for a stranger, or anyone for that matter? Why is she wounded in the arm? And the kids, one is fatally shot and the other 2 are seriously injured. Diane did not disclose to the police that she owned a .22 caliber handgun, but both Steve and Knickerbocker informed them that she did. Investigators later discovered that she brought the handgun to Arizona. While they were unable to find the weapon, they found unfired casings in her home with extractor markings from the murder weapon. Most damaging, the witnesses saw her car being driven very slowly towards the hospital at an estimated speed of 5 to 7 miles an hour, contradicting her claim that she drove to the hospital at a high speed after the shooting. Based on this and additional evidence, Downs was arrested on February 28, 1984, 9 months after the shooting, and charged with 1 count of murder and 2 counts each of attempted murder and criminal assault. One of the craziest parts about this whole case were the interviews she did just a few days after her daughter, Cheryl, was dead. Danny was paralyzed from the waist down, and Christy had suffered a disabling stroke. Take a look at her behavior in this video, where she smiles and laughs while reenacting the apparent brutal murder and shooting of her children.
Yeah. I'm sure he didn't intend to shoot my arm. Like that. I got in the car, jumped in, put the keys in. I just hit my cast. Started the car and left. The car door shut itself. God, this is worse than okay.
Did you catch that? After she banged her cast on the door, she said, "This is worse than..." Watch again.
This is worse than okay.
Worse than what? When you shot yourself? It's truly chilling, the sheer lack of emotion visible as the woman lies through her teeth. Now watch as she tells her version of the story.
We were just out, I guess, sightseeing, I guess you'd say. And the kids got tired. They fell asleep in the car. So I decided to just head on home. But I saw a road I hadn't been on before. We like to take back roads. And just went down that road. And there was a guy standing in the road, flagging me down, so I stopped. Everything was done in a matter of 5 or 10 seconds. He swung himself around and fired twice. One caught me in the arm, the other one I went off somewhere. Danny cried the whole way. I could hear him softly just moaning, and Christy was dying. God, all the blood.
Downs was convicted on all charges June 17, 1984, and sentenced to life in prison plus 50 years. She was required to serve 25 years before being considered for parole. Most of Downs' sentence is to be served consecutively. The judge made it clear that he did not intend for Downs to ever be free again. Psychiatrists diagnosed her with narcissistic behavior and antisocial personality disorders, labeling her as a deviant sociopath. So what do you think? Did you get the same feeling of wrongness in your gut as you watched her tell her story? Tell me in the comments. Number 2. The Carnation Murders. The small town of Carnation, Washington lies in the Snoqualmie Valley between Duvall and Fall City, about 25 miles east of Seattle. It is on the east bank of the Snoqualmie River, just north of its junction with the Tolt River. With a population of just over 2,100 people, Carnation is rural and most residents are employed in farming. Carnation is a close-knit and friendly community where everybody knows one another. The city hosts annual 4th of July and fall harvest celebrations, during which residents get together and enjoy the company of their longtime friends and neighbors. Violent crime in this area is extremely rare, and it's considered to be a safe place to raise a family. This sadly was not the case on December 24th of 2007, the day of one of the worst murder cases in Washington state history. Judy Anderson and Wayne Anderson had been happily married for 31 years. Judy worked for the U.S. Postal Service while Wayne was an engineer for Boeing. Together they had 3 children, Mary, Scott, and Michele. Scott and his wife Erica had 2 children, Olivia, who was 5, and Nathan, who was just 3. Michele Anderson lived with her boyfriend Joseph McEnroe. They were both 29 years old and lived in a trailer on the 10-acre property owned by Judy and Wayne. The family had planned a get-together at Wayne and Judy's house for Christmas Eve. That afternoon, the couple's house was cozy. They were ready for Christmas. The family's dinner was cooking in the kitchen. Judy sat wrapping gifts in preparation for her grandchildren's arrival, and Wayne sat on the couch relaxing and watching TV. Out of the night, the violence erupted. Michele Anderson and Joseph McEnroe burst into the house, each armed with a handgun. McEnroe distracted Judy while Anderson shot at Wayne. Anderson's gun jammed, so McEnroe shot Wayne and then Judy, killing them both. McEnroe and Anderson then cleaned the room and dragged the bodies of Judy and Wayne into a shed behind the house. They then sat, waiting for the arrival of Scott, Erica, and their 2 children. After about an hour, the family arrived. Nothing seemed amiss, so they began to get comfortable. That's when Anderson and McEnroe appeared, and Anderson opened fire on Scott, shooting him a total of 4 times. Erica called 911 around 5 p.m. and screamed down the phone, "Not the kids." But before the authorities are able to find out what was going on, the phone went dead. This is the recording of the 911 call Erica made.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Anderson then shot Erica twice. When Anderson found she had run out of bullets, she told McEnroe he needs to shoot the kids, who were screaming and clinging to their mother. McEnroe does as Anderson says. With 14 bullets, Michele Anderson and Joseph McEnroe wiped out 3 generations of the Anderson family. In response to Erica's 911 call, authorities are dispatched to the Anderson property. But Anderson, knowing the police were likely to come, had already locked the gate. The police retreated, not realizing the extent of the carnage taking place behind the locked gate. Postal workers returned to work on December 26th, so when Linda Teeley reported to work that morning, she was surprised by the absence of her best friend, Judy Anderson. Teeley was convinced something was badly wrong. She left work and made her way to Judy's house, arriving shortly after 8 a.m. The gate was still locked, so Teeley got out of her car and walked around it, approaching the front door. She knocked, but nobody answered, so she tried the door, which was unlocked. On pushing the door open wider, she saw it, the body of Scott Anderson lying motionless on the floor. At first, Teeley thought he had carbon monoxide poisoning, but a closer look revealed that he had been shot in the head. Not far from Scott lay the bodies of Erica and Nathan, who had similar injuries. Teeley did not have her cell phone, so she rushed into Judy and Wayne's bedroom and called 911 from their landline and made this heart-wrenching call.
There's been a murder. There's 3 people dead that I can see right now.
Inside?
I just came up. She works with me.
Inside the house?
Yes.
What do you see?
There's a baby and a man and a woman, and she's my best friend.
She told the 911 operators that Judy and Wayne's daughter, Michele, lived on the property in a mobile home, and Michele had been upset with Judy and Wayne over money. Teeley had a hunch that Michele may have been involved in these killings. She told the operators, "The gate is locked, which makes me wonder if her daughter did it, which is scary, because then I might be up here with a murderer." Police arrived at 9:30 a.m. First they found Scott, Erica, and Nathan, and on closer inspection, Olivia, huddled behind her mother. All 4 had been shot in the head. They began combing the house for evidence. When an officer ventured outside to the shed, the bodies of Judy and Wayne were discovered. Around 3 hours after the police arrived, Anderson and McEnroe pulled up to Wayne and Judy's house. They did not seem fazed by the police cars surrounding the property, nor did they ask if Judy and Wayne were okay, which raised officer suspicions right away. The authorities began questioning Anderson and McEnroe. Anderson told them that they'd been on their way to Las Vegas to get married, but when they got lost, they turned around and came home. Anderson told the detectives that the last time she had seen her parents was Christmas Eve, before heading to Las Vegas. When a detective asked Anderson why she thought the authorities were at the house, she broke down. "It's not Joe's fault, it's my fault," Anderson exclaimed. "As soon as I shot the gun, I felt so bad. Like, what the hell have I done? I'm a monster." On that note, I'd have to agree with her there. The detective asked Anderson why the children had been killed, and Anderson explained that they would be scarred for life after seeing what happened to their parents. Anderson was questioned as to why she felt the need to wipe out her family. She told detectives that she was, quote, "tired of everybody stepping on her," unquote, claiming that her brother Scott owed her $40,000 and would not pay her back, and that her parents had begun pressing her about paying rent money for living in the mobile home on their property, after she and McEnroe had lived there for 6 years free of charge. It became clear to detectives that money was at the heart of this heinous crime. When questioned about how long she had been planning the murders, Anderson replied that she had decided 2 weeks ago that she would kill her family and asked McEnroe to help her. After Anderson and McEnroe's confession, which went on for nearly 2 hours and detailed who killed who, the two were arrested on the spot. Anderson led detectives to where she and McEnroe had discarded the 2 guns in the Stillaguamish River. On December 28th, Anderson and McEnroe were each charged with 6 counts of aggravated murder. In June 2008, during a jailhouse interview with the Seattle Times, Anderson confessed to the murders once again. She said, "I want the most severe punishment, which would be the death penalty. I think if I killed a bunch of people, I'm not sure I deserve to live. I want to waive my right to trial." Now, the trial was a long and arduous process due to questions about the defendant's sanity and whether a death sentence was an ethical option. Now, I won't get into that here, but it wasn't until April 21st, 2016, when the couple finally, once and for all, were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Number 3. Kyron Horman. The tragic tale of Kyron Horman begins on June 4th, 2010, when Kyron was taken to school by his stepmother Terry, joined by his toddler sister Kiera. The two then stayed with them while he attended the science fair. She took pictures of his project and talked with teachers. Terry stated that she left the school around 8:45 a.m. after calling goodbye to Kyron as he walked down the hall to his first class. However, he was never seen in his first class, a math class, and he was instead marked absent. And as far as we know, that was the last time anyone saw Kyron Horman alive. The search that followed his disappearance spanned over 10 days, was the largest in Oregon history, and included over 1,300 searchers from Oregon, Washington, and California. It also sparked the largest criminal investigation in Oregon history. Kyron Richard Horman was born September 9, 2002 in Portland, Oregon, to Desiree Young and Kane Horman, an engineer for Intel. Desiree and Kane Horman were already planning on splitting when she got pregnant and decided to give their relationship another chance. But it wasn't working between the two, and they ended up divorcing 8 months into the pregnancy. The two had been granted shared custody of Kyron until 2004, but when Desiree was diagnosed with kidney failure that required extensive medical intervention, Kane took over full custody but still remained an active part of Kyron's upbringing. In 2007, Kane married Terry Moulton, a substitute teacher originally from Roseburg, Oregon. Kane became romantically involved with Terry around 2001 when he and Desiree were in the midst of a divorce. Kane and Terry married in 2007 while in Kauai. In December of 2008, Terry gave birth to a daughter, Kiera. By 2010, Kyron was in 2nd grade at Skyline Elementary School. Skyline Elementary is perched upon a beautiful hill surrounded by the lush and woody forest of the aptly named Forest Park. As beautiful as it is, it's also dark and dense with lots of places to get lost. As we head back to June 4th, 2010, after Terry dropped off Kyron at 8:45, from then until 10:10 a.m., she told investigators she went to the local Fred Meyer to pick up a prescription for her daughter, but went to the wrong one, so she had to head to another to pick it up. From that time until 11:39 a.m., she was driving with her daughter in the hopes that the motion from the vehicle would soothe an earache the toddler was suffering from throughout that morning. Terry said that she went to the local gym and worked out until about 12:40 p.m. while leaving the baby at the daycare for gym members inside. By 1:21 p.m., she had arrived home and posted photos of Kyron at the science fair on Facebook. At 3:30 p.m., Terry and her husband Kane walked with their daughter Kiara to the bus stop to meet Kyron. The bus driver told them that the boy had not boarded the bus after school, and to call the school and ask his whereabouts. Terry did so. only to be informed by the school secretary that, as far as anyone knew, Kyron had not been at school since early that day, and he had actually been accordingly marked absent. Realizing then that the boy was missing, the secretary called 911. The police and staff began searching the school, but unfortunately, it had no security cameras. Let's also not forget that there was a science fair that morning, so unlike a usual school day, no one was required to sign in and the school was basically open to the public. Now, another unfortunate circumstance that contributed to this miscommunication is that Terry had actually told Kyron's school that he had a doctor's appointment that day, so there was no action when the child was marked absent, as there normally would be. Now, he didn't have a doctor's appointment that day, it was actually for the next Friday, but was marked as such because of that miscommunication. On a side note, the doctor's appointment was because his doctor thought he might be having mini seizures, and he seemed to be forgetting things. Just speculation, but if he did get lost, this may have attributed to him having trouble finding his way back. On June 9, 2010, the Horman family, who had initially refused to speak with the media, released a statement to the press thanking people for their support and pleading for efforts from the community to help get Kyron home. On June 12th, around 300 trained rescuers were on the ground searching wooded areas near Skyline Elementary. A reward posted for information leading to the discovery of Kyron, which was initially $25,000, expanded to $50,000 in late July 2010. In a strange turn of events, in late 2010, in the midst of the investigation into Kyron's disappearance, Kyron Horman was reportedly told by investigators that Terry had offered their landscaper, Rodolfo Sanchez, quote, a lot of money, unquote, to kill her husband. Sanchez testified in a deposition that Terry approached him to help kill her husband in January 2010, 5 months before Kyron's disappearance. But when Terry's attorney, Stephen Howes, asked if Terry asked him to kill her husband, she said no. Investigators convinced Sanchez to confront Terry while wearing an audio surveillance device, but they were unable to obtain any evidence and could not make an arrest. On June 28th, Kyron filed for divorce and obtained a restraining order against Terry, and Terry was eventually granted supervised visitations with her daughter. During this time, Terry failed 2 separate polygraph examinations regarding Kyron's disappearance. In August 2010, it was announced that law enforcement were searching for an individual allegedly seen by 2 witnesses sitting inside Terry's truck outside Skyline Elementary the day of Kyron's disappearance. Now, I want to be clear about this. According to professionals, polygraphs are essentially useless and only used as a tool to get people to confess. And as you know, they're not admissible in court. On June 1st, 2012, Kyron's mother, Desiree Young, filed a civil lawsuit against Terry, claiming that she was, quote, responsible for the disappearance of Kyron, unquote. The lawsuit attempted to prove that Terry had kidnapped Kyron on the day he disappeared. Young sought $10 million in damages from Terry. On August 15, 2012, a federal court judge denied a motion by Terry to delay the lawsuit. During testimony provided by Kyron Horman in a separate hearing the same year, he stated that police had told him they have more probable cause to think Terry Horman was involved in Kyron's disappearance than they did 2 years ago. On July 30th, 2013, it was announced that Young had dropped the lawsuit against Terry so as not to interfere with the ongoing police investigation. And sadly, this is where it ends. Kyron has never been found, and no one was ever charged in his disappearance. So that was 3 chilling crimes that shocked the Pacific Northwest. Let me know what you think about these tragic tales down in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I got another video on urban legends from around the United States coming out in the next few weeks. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Subscribe.